Did you guys have a lot of fun last night? Did you guys have a lot of fun? You guys are crazy. You jump in the pool with your clothes on. You guys are crazy. It's a crazy group. That's fun. Hey, I hope you had a lot of fun last night. And I hope part of the fun, I know it's a different type of fun, but I hope that part of the fun of last night was actually having that 15 minutes of quiet. And again, I know that's a different type of fun than jumping in the pool with your clothes on. But I hope you enjoyed being able to have a chance to just sit and be alone with God. And I really hope that would be the first of thousands of times that you would do that in your life. You might be like, now wait, I'm not going to Young Life Camp 1,000 times again, but that's not a bad idea. But I want to let you know that that's something that you can do anytime. I know that's something I try to do every day. I try to have time alone with God. I know your leaders try to do that every day as well. And so I would just encourage you that it doesn't have to be just at camp. I pray that you guys would have a chance to do that on your own as well. Hey, one of the cool things about being on Young Life staff, I told you the first day that I think I have the coolest job in America. Like, I get to be on Young Life staff. I get to hang out with people like you. It's so much fun. But one of my favorite parts of my job is I get to hang out with our leaders. And just like you guys are realizing you have pretty cool leaders, back where I live, I've got some pretty cool leaders that I get to hang out with too. And I think they're the best part of what I get to do. One of the cool things about it, though, is that a lot of our leaders, at least in my town, and probably in yours too, most of them are college age or young adults. Not all of them, but most of them kind of are in that range. And that age group is kind of the age group that tends to get married, right? So I get invited, and everybody on Young Life staff, man, we get invited to tons of weddings. Like tons of them. Always getting invited to weddings, trying to figure out, can I make it work to go to this wedding or that wedding? Always getting invited. And I used to think that the reason why I was getting invited to all these weddings is that I'm an incredibly charming and fun guy to hang out with. I used to think that. But then yeah, it is true. Thank you for saying that. But what I realized real quickly is that the reason why people invite lots of people to their wedding is because they want a lot of gifts, right? They want a lot of presents. And I don't blame them for that. When Tiffany and I got married, and here's just a shameless picture just to get an awe. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. That's the day we got married. That's the day we got married. So our wedding was great. We had a great wedding. We had a great honeymoon, and we came home from our honeymoon, and we walked into our little apartment. And our apartment was literally no bigger than the total of this stage right here. We didn't have any money, but we walked into our apartment coming back from the honeymoon, and it was packed with gifts. I mean, just packed, like all kinds of new stuff. Way nicer than anything we could have ever afforded. We had a new couch and a new TV. We had a king-size bed. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We got fine china. Who gets china? Like, I don't even know why we had these really nice dishes all of a sudden. Stuff that was way out of our income bracket. Stuff we didn't deserve. It was really, really cool. And so as you think about what Jesus did for us, and you think about the cross that we talked about last night. You guys remember the cross was here, and I showed you how Jesus was nailed to the cross. And when Jesus was hanging on the cross, it really was an invitation. Jesus on the cross was an invitation to all of us to come and to be a part of his family. And I told you last night that it was a gift, that it wasn't something that we could earn, but it was a gift that God was giving to us. And then the crazy thing is that's not the end of the story. You might have thought Jesus dying would be the end, and yet there's more to the story. And so I want to just tell you kind of what happened right after Jesus died. And I'm going to read you this passage from the Bible, and it's almost like a Hollywood action movie, because stuff was going on that's actually really interesting. So the next day, after Jesus died, some of those religious leaders that decided to have Jesus killed, they went to one of the governors, powerful guys, and said, "Sir, we remembered that while Jesus was still alive, that he said, 'After 3 days, I will rise again.'" And so they said to the governor, "So give the order for the tomb where Jesus was buried to be made secure until the third day. Otherwise, his disciples might come and steal the body and tell people that he'd been risen from the dead. Okay, so when Jesus died, they took Jesus' body and they put it in a tomb. And a tomb isn't really a word that we use a whole lot anymore, but basically what it was, most likely was a kind of a hillside with essentially a little hole dug out, or a cave that was dug out of the hillside. And they took Jesus' body and they put it in there until they were getting ready to have him buried later. And so these religious leaders, they remembered that Jesus, when he was alive, said, you know what? After I die, I'm going to rise again in 3 days. Which the people, when they heard that, they weren't quite understanding completely what Jesus meant. But then the religious leaders remembered. And they thought, oh, we got to make sure that nobody comes and steals his body to pretend that he actually rose from the dead. So listen to what the governor said. The governor said, take a guard. And guard meaning multiple people. Take a guard, a group of guards, and go make the tomb as secure as you know how. So they went, and they made the tomb secure by rolling a stone in front of it and putting a seal on it, and then posting the guard. Okay, so they took this big, huge stone, rolled it in front of the entrance to the cave, and then they posted guards all along in front of it to make sure that nobody came and stole the body. And at dawn, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. So this is most likely Jesus' mom, whose name was Mary, and then a friend of Jesus' whose name was also Mary. And there was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow, and the guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. In other words, they just fell down. And the angel said to the two women, don't be afraid, for I know that you're looking for Jesus who was crucified, but he's not here. He is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay, and then go quickly and tell his friends that he's risen from the dead. All right, so, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, what I'm telling you right now, if you were just to kind of hear about it like on the street, like if somebody just told you that this happened back home, you'd be like, no way, that's crazy. To think that someone could actually rise from the dead after being dead for 3 days. So why would Jesus do this? I mean, of all the miracles that Jesus did, why would Jesus decide, okay, I'm going to rise from the dead? Well, I think the answer to this is pretty amazing. I think the answer to this is that Jesus on the cross was an invitation, and it was a gift to us. And I think that Jesus just wanted to keep pouring out gifts for his family. So here's what they are. I think there's actually 3 big gifts that Jesus was pouring out on us from rising from the dead. The first one is this. I think it's proof that Jesus was who he said he was, and that he is who he says he is. What I mean by that is every single one of us, I think at some point, and maybe even this week, have been kind of wondering, like, is this whole God thing real? I mean, the Bible, is this whole thing real? Or did somebody just make this up? And I could talk to you for a really long time about this, and there's books written this thick about it, but this is real. Jesus actually rose from the dead, and to me, that is proof that he is who he says he is. So that's an incredible gift that we could walk away hearing about the resurrection going, man, this is real. I think the second gift that Jesus is pouring out on us by rising from the dead, this is cool. I think the fact that Jesus conquered death. In other words, death didn't hold Jesus down. He's pouring out a gift saying, and it doesn't have to for you either. In other words, death does not have to be the end for any of us now. This gift of Jesus dying on the cross and taking our place in death so that we could live means we can live forever with Jesus. Death is no longer the end for those of us who are following Jesus. How incredible is that? I mean, if you think about it, death is like the most scary thing for any of us. They make movies about, like horror movies, that are about death. That's the whole point that scares us. It's like, oh, somebody's going to die. It wouldn't be a horror movie if death wasn't part of it, right? That's what scares us. And yet the Bible tells us that we no longer have to be scared of death because it's not the end for people who follow Jesus, which is an incredible gift. And then the third gift, which plays right on top of that, is that it's not just for the day we die. This gift that's being given to us of Jesus offering us life, it's not just for the day we die. It's not like Jesus is like, okay, you guys are in my family, so here's the deal. I'm going to give you my cell number, and on the day you die, I want you to hit me up, and I'll let you in up in heaven. It's not like that. And I'm glad it's not. Jesus said this before he died. He said this. He said, I have come that they might have life, meaning all of us, that they might have life and have it to the full. And I love that. That's one of my favorite verses in the Bible, because what Jesus is saying is, I want you to have life to the full. Life the way it was meant to be. I think that's so cool. Now, I want you to hear me say this. I want you to hear me really clear on this. That verse does not mean that if you follow Jesus, your life will go perfect. Like you'll be rich and you'll never get sick and you won't have any problems. It doesn't mean that at all. Life to the full doesn't mean you'll just get what you want. In fact, I'm going to tell you that the opposite is true. No matter who you are and no matter what stage of life you're in, you're going to have difficult things happen to you. Life can be really, really challenging. It will be challenging. It will be hard. And following Jesus doesn't exempt you from that. But wouldn't you rather go through the hard things in life, knowing that the God of the universe who created you and drew you up and called you his masterpiece and died for you and invited you into his family and created the stars and the universe, he's that powerful. Wouldn't you much rather have the God of the universe guiding you through the hard times of your life than trying to do it on your own? So this is an incredible gift from God that we can live with him starting now. I love that. So, here's what I was thinking. I was thinking that I would finish up the story for you of that teenager who ran off to Vegas. It's actually kind of a cool ending to the story. And the reason why I want to finish this story for you is that I think it really sums up everything we've talked about. From the day God created you, to the day he calmed the storms, to the day he died on the cross, to the resurrection, all of this, I think this story just kind of sums it all up. So the teenager ran off to Vegas, right? You remember the story, and he ended up looking at the pig slop, thinking, man, that looks good, that's what I need. And if you don't know what pig slop is, pig food, if you've never been on a farm, let me just tell you what pig food is, real quick. Are you ready for this? It's pretty nasty. I know you're like, no, I don't really want to know. All right, here's what pig food is. Basically what a farmer does when he makes pig food is he takes the milk from a cow that's probably sour or didn't turn out very good, or it was extra that they didn't need, and so now it's gone bad. So they take the milk that they don't want anymore and they pour it in a big old bucket, right? And then they take maybe the fruits and the vegetables that they've been growing that didn't turn out very good. I don't know if you've ever seen stuff like that. Have you ever tried to grow a garden, or you've seen stuff in the store, you're like, oh, that looks nasty. And they just throw that in the bucket too. And then they take like the scraps of food off of their plate, like we do when we're just kind of brushing our food into the garbage can before we do the dishes. They take all of that out of the garbage and they throw it into the bucket as well. So there's like apple cores and just all kinds of nastiness just thrown in that bucket, and the pigs love it. And so my man was looking at that bucket full of food and saying, that looks good, I got to have some. Now, watch what happens here. But when he came to his senses, in other words, he's standing over that bucket, and all of a sudden he comes to his senses, and he said this. He said, how many of my father's workers have food to eat, but here I am starving to death? I'm going to set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your workers. And so he got up and he went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. So I kind of picture this like the dad was maybe out on the front porch of his house and maybe talking to somebody else in the family or one of the workers, and they're talking, and then all of a sudden he's like, who's that out there? Wait, you know who that looks like? That looks like my son. And it says that the father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son, and he threw his arms around him, and he kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called one of your sons. But the father loved this. The father said to his workers, we talked today about God wanting to lavish gifts on us. The father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattest cow we have and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost, but now he's found. And so they began to celebrate. And I think you guys are, it's pretty cool. I mean, just the fact that you're clapping means that you can kind of pull this all together, right? That every single one of us is that son who has turned our back and run away, and yet as we start working our way back to God, God's on the front porch. God's on the front porch waiting. Just waiting for every single one of us to turn around and walk back to him. And he's looking out in the distance, hoping to see every single one of us. And when he does, did you notice that he didn't look at his son and go, I can't believe you took all my, I can't believe you wasted, I can't believe you. Did you notice what he did instead? It said his heart was filled with compassion, and he ran to him, and he hugged him, and he kissed him, and he gave him all these gifts. He didn't deserve it. That guy didn't deserve it one bit, and yet his father couldn't wait for that to happen. So cool. And so, here's the great thing. That's the story of God. That's the story of the Bible. And the next chapter of the story is yours to write. God is sitting on the front porch, so to speak, waiting for every single one of us to turn and come running to him. And for some of you, that might be like a sprint. You can't wait to come running back to God. And for some of you, it might be a slow walk. You're like, I'm just not sure about this. But I want to encourage you to just keep walking towards God and watch what happens when you do. Here's the cool thing. You might have things that you still need to decide about God. But the amazing thing is that God has made his decision about you. He loves you. And he's done everything he can to invite you to come and to be a part of his family. Let me pray for us. God, thanks for this incredible story. I mean, the kind of story that we read from the Bible and we start cheering because we get it and because it just makes sense that we need you. And thank you that you are the kind of God that would come running for us and that would lavish your love on us even when we don't deserve it. That's so cool and so amazing. And we're thankful for it. God, I pray as we head back to cabin time that we would have some great conversations. I pray that we would be real and that we would be authentic and that we would be known and that we would be cared for because of it. You are good, God, and we thank you. Amen. All right, head on back to your cabins. Have a great day.